បាទសូមគោរពលោកប្រធានសូមគោរពអង្គសាវនកម្មទាំងមូលខ្ញុំបាទមានសំណួរ5ដែលត្រូវចោទសួរទៅលោកខៀវសំផននិងលោកនួនជាសំណួរទី1តើលោកបានដឹងអំពីការចាប់ខ្លួននិងបាត់ខ្លួនរបស់ឪពុករបស់ខ្ញុំបាទឈ្មោះយិនស៊ីដារ៉េតជាសាស្ត្រាចារ្យនិងជាវីរៈស្នេហ៍ឯកមេបញ្ជាការកងទ័ពលេខ24 BE មានទីតាំងនៅបន្ទាយដែកមុនអ្នកលឿងឬទេសំណួរទី2តើលោកមានដែលគិតដល់ពីផលវិបាកនៃការកាប់សម្លាប់ការព្រាត់ប្រាសគ្រួសារដែលខ្មែរក្រហមបានបង្កឡើងដោយរូបលោកផ្ទាល់ដែរឬទេតើលោកមានការភ្ញាក់រលឹកនិងមានវិបដិសារីចំពោះការចូលរួមរបស់លោកក្នុងរបបនេះដែលបានបង្កការឈឺចាប់ដល់ប្រជាជនខ្មែរទាំងមូលដែរឬទេសំណួរទី3ក្នុងឋានៈលោកជាបញ្ញជនជាន់ខ្ពស់ម្នាក់តើលោកហ៊ានធ្វើការបកស្រាយនៅការពិតនៅហេតុការណ៍ដែលកើតឡើងក្នុងរបបខ្មែរក្រហមឲ្យប្រជាជាតិនិងប្រជាជនពិភពលោកទាំងមូលបានដឹងដែរឬទេក្នុងឋានៈលោកជាមេដឹកនាំកម្ពុជាហើយក្នុងឋានៈលោកជាបញ្ញជនជាន់ខ្ពស់ដែលលោកបានប្រើប្រាស់កន្លងមកហើយបានទទួលនៅភាពល្បីល្បាញពីសម័យសង្គមរាស្ត្រនិយមនិងសាធារណរដ្ឋខ្មែរតាមរយៈការដឹងនិងការស្រាវជ្រាវរបស់ខ្ញុំសំណួរទី4តើលោកមានគំនិតក្នុងការសុំទោសដល់ប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាទេជាពិសេសក្នុងនាមដែលមិនដឹងរដ្ឋបវេណីក្នុងនាមខ្លួនខ្ញុំផ្ទាល់សំណួរទី5ក្នុងនាមជាប្រធានគណៈរដ្ឋនៃរបបកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យតើលោកបានដឹងអ្វីខ្លះអំពីកម្រិតជីវភាពនៃការរស់នៅរបស់ប្រជាជនដែលរងគ្រោះដោយការអត់ឃ្លាននិងការកាប់សម្លាប់ការឃុំឃាំងការចាប់ខ្លួនការធ្វើទារុណកម្មដ៏ឃោរឃៅក្នុងរបបរបស់លោកដែរឬទេសូមអរគុណលោកប្រធានក្រុមប្រឹក្សាជំនុំជម្រះនិងអង្គសាវនាការទាំងមូលសំណួរទាំង5របស់ខ្ញុំបាទមានត្រឹមតែប៉ុណ្ណេះសូមអរគុណ
អរគុណឥឡូវនេះអង្គជំរះសូមបញ្ជូននៅសំណួរទាំង5របស់ដើមរដ្ឋមន្ត្រីនេះជូនទៅជនជាប់ចោតខៀវសំផនដើម្បីឆ្លើយតបនឹងសំណួរនេះមុនលោកនួនជាលោកខៀវសំផន
សូមគោរពលោកប្រធានសូមគោរពអស់លោកស្រីចៅក្រមទាំងអស់សូមគោរពអង្គសាវនាការទាំងមូលសូមជំរាបសួរលោកយិនរំដួលខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបលោកថាបើខ្ញុំជាលោកវិញខ្ញុំក៏មានការឈឺចាប់ហើយសោកសង្រេងដូចលោកដែរចំពោះសំណួរទី1របស់លោកខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបលោកថាខ្ញុំមិនដែលបានស្គាល់ឪពុកលោកនោះទេខ្ញុំមិនដែលបានស្គាល់លោកសឹមស៊ីរ៉ាដេតសឹមស៊ីដារ៉េតនោះទេហើយខ្ញុំសោកស្ដាយណាស់ដោយឪពុកលោកត្រូវបានគេសម្លាប់ដោយឃោរឃៅខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបលោកថា ចាប់ពីខ្ញុំពេលដែលខ្ញុំរត់ចេញពីត្រូវកិច្ចរត់ភៀសខ្លួនចេញពីភ្នំពេញពេលណាមកខ្ញុំបានត្រូវការពារដោយមេខ្មែរក្រហមរហូតដល់ឆ្នាំ79ដូច្នេះខ្ញុំត្រូវរស់នៅហៅថាដោយដាច់ពីជីវភាពជាក់ស្ដែងរបស់ប្រជាជនរហូតមកដែររាប់សិបឆ្នាំកាលពីឆ្នាំ70ដល់ឆ្នាំ79ដោយខ្ញុំត្រូវរស់នៅជាប់ជាមួយអ្នកដឹកនាំកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យនិងដោយតួនាទីខ្ញុំនៅក្នុងកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យខ្ញុំបានរួចខ្លួនមិនបានជួបប្រទះនឹងអំពើឃោរឃៅដ៏ឆ្កួតលីលារបស់ស្ដេចក្រាញ់ផ្សេងដែលបានបង្កជាសោកនាដកម្មដល់ជាតិនិងប្រជាជនយើងយ៉ាងនេះទេតែមុខមួយទៀតក៏នាំឲ្យខ្ញុំមិនបានដឹងឮអំពីអំពើឃោរឃៅឆ្កួតលីលាដូចដែលដើមមិនដឹងរដ្ឋបវេនីជាបន្តបន្ទាប់ហើយក្រោយនេះលោកបានអញ្ជើញមករៀបរាប់នៅតុលាការនេះដែរពិតមែនហើយខ្ញុំមិនមែនជាអ្នកមនោគមវិជ្ជាទេក៏ប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំជាអ្នកដែលមានអារម្មណ៍កតេមួយគឺអារម្មណ៍កតេរួមចំណែកធ្វើម៉េចកសាងប្រទេសយើងឲ្យបានរីកចម្រើនជឿនលឿននិងការពារប្រទេសយើងឲ្យបានរស់គង់វង្សដូច្នេះចំពោះសំណួរទី2របស់លោកក៏ខ្ញុំមានការសោកស្ដាយហើយខ្ញុំយល់ឃើញថាត្រូវតែចាប់ស្ដេចក្រាញ់ដែលបានប្រព្រឹត្តអំពើឃោរឃៅដល់ឆ្កួតលីលាទាំងនោះយកមកកាត់ទោសឲ្យស័ក្តិសមទៅតាមធាតុឃោរឃៅឆ្កួតលីលារបស់វាដែលខ្ញុំបានមករួមជាមួយកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យមិនមែនដើម្បីសម្លាប់រង្គាលខ្មែរគ្នាឯងទេគឺដើម្បីថារួមចំណែកការពារជាតិឲ្យរស់គង់វង្សហើយក្រោយតទៅទៀតកសាងជាតិឲ្យបានរីកចម្រើនប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំស្ដាយណាស់វាបែរទៅជាអញ្ចឹងវិញឥឡូវចំពោះសំណួរទី3របស់លោកខ្ញុំបានជម្រាបតុលាការរួចហើយ ថាខ្ញុំនឹងរួមជាមួយតុលាការឲ្យអស់លទ្ធភាពរបស់ខ្ញុំដើម្បីស្វែងរកការពិតដូច្នេះហើយបានជាខ្ញុំសម្រេចចិត្តឆ្លើយនឹងសំណួររបស់លោកហើយត្រៀមខ្លួនដើម្បីឆ្លើយនឹងសំណួររបស់ភាគីទាំងអស់នៅក្នុងអង្គសវនាការនេះចំពោះសំណួរទី4របស់លោកខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបលោកថាពីម្សិលមិញខ្ញុំបានលើកដៃសំពះសុំទោសលោកស្រីហួរចន្ទថាហើយតាមរយៈលោកស្រីហួរចន្ទថាក៏ខ្ញុំសូមទោសប្រជាជនខ្មែរយើងទាំងមូលទាំងអស់ដែលបានរងគ្រោះរួចមកហើយនេះថ្ងៃនេះខ្ញុំក៏សូមទោសលោកទៀតខ្ញុំសូមលំអោនកាយគោរពដល់វិញ្ញាណក្ខន្ធឪពុករបស់លោកម្ដាយរបស់លោកនិងសាច់សាលោហិតរបស់លោកដែលបានចាក់ឋានទៅក្នុងក្តីឈឺចាប់ខ្លោបសារោគនិយាយមិនបានសំណួរទី5មើលពីក្រៅមកគេអាចសន្និដ្ឋានថាខ្ញុំជាមេដឹកនាំធំពិតមែនហើយខ្ញុំមានស្លាកធំណាស់តែខ្ញុំគ្មានអំណាចជាក់ស្ដែងដើម្បីចាប់អ្នកនេះចាប់អ្នកនោះទេហើយដោយបានខ្ញុំជំរាបខាងលើខ្ញុំមិនបានដឹងនៅសភាពការប្រជាជនយើងត្រូវរស់នៅជាក់ស្ដែងយ៉ាងណានោះទេត្រូវគេធ្វើទុក្ខធ្វើបាបយ៉ាងណានោះទេឬមួយក៏ត្រូវគេចាប់ចងដាក់គុកច្បាប់យ៉ាងណានោះទេខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបលោកប៉ុណ្ណឹងសូមម្ដងទៀតខ្ញុំសូមទោសលោកខ្ញុំសូមទោសពុតមែនតែខ្ញុំមិនបានចូលសម្រេចនៅនយោបាយអ្វីរបស់កម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យក៏ដោយក៏ខ្ញុំសូមទោសពីព្រោះដោយពីព្រឹកមិញអញ្ចឹងគេហៅថាត្រីមួយកន្ត្រកស្អុយមួយវាស្អុយទាំងអស់ការពុតត្រូវខ្ញុំមិនស្អុយទេក្នុងន័យថាខ្ញុំមិនបានប្រព្រឹត្តអំពើខូខើដល់ល្ងងខ្លៅដោយដែលលោកហើយនឹងភាគីបណ្ដាមិនដឹងរដ្ឋបវេនីផ្សេងទៀតបានរៀបរាប់ជាបន្តបន្ទាប់មកនោះទេខ្ញុំសូមអស់ហើយអរគុណលោក
បាទអរគុណមកជាបន្តនេះឲ្យម្រាស់សូមបញ្ជូននៅសំណួរទាំង5នេះទៅលោកនួនជា
នួនជាខ្ញុំសូមគោរពអង្គសវនាការអង្គជំនុំជម្រះ
អញ្ជើញលោកនួនជា
តែច្បាស់លាស់ហើយថាខ្ញុំ
លោកនោះជាបងអង្គផ្អាកសិនលោកនោះជាដូចជាមានបញ្ហាបច្ចេកទេសខាងសំឡេងនិងរូបភាពមិនឃើញហើយនឹងស្ដាប់សំឡេងមិនបានទេ
ខ្ញុំបាន មានមតិជាហូរហែមកហើយគឺថាខ្ញុំសូមទទួលខុសត្រូវទាំងអស់នៅអ្វីដែលកើតមកកន្លងមកក្នុងសម័យកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យដូច្នោះខ្ញុំមិនគេចវេះទៅណាទេខាងផ្លូវចិត្តខ្ញុំសូមទទួលការខុសត្រូវទាំងអស់ដោយស្មោះអស់ពីចិត្តនេះសូមជម្រាបដោយត្រង់ពីព្រោះក្នុងឋានៈជាសមាជិកម្នាក់របស់កម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យខ្ញុំហ៊ានទទួលខុសត្រូវទោះបីជាខ្លួនខ្ញុំបានប្រព្រឹត្តដោយផ្ទាល់ឬមិនដោយផ្ទាល់ក៏ដោយតែខ្ញុំសោកស្ដាយណាស់ចំពោះព្រឹត្តិការណ៍ទាំងឡាយដែលកើតឡើងដោយចេតនាឬអចេតនាហើយទោះបីជាខ្ញុំដឹងឬមិនដឹងក៏ដោយខ្ញុំសូមបញ្ជាក់ហើយបញ្ជាក់ទៀតថាខ្ញុំទទួលខុសត្រូវទាំងអស់ខាងផ្លូវចិត្តខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបបញ្ជាក់អញ្ចឹង ក្នុងឱកាសនេះខ្ញុំសូមចូលរួមមរណទុក្ខការសោកស្ដាយចំពោះការបាត់បង់គ្រួសាររបស់លោករំដួលតាមខ្ញុំចាំឈ្មោះលោករំដួលដូច្នោះនេះហើយតទៅនេះខ្ញុំសូមបញ្ជាក់ម្ដងទៀតនៅទួនាទីនិងភារកិច្ចរបស់ខ្ញុំក្នុងសម័យកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យខទី1ខ្ញុំជាសមាជិកអចិន្ត្រៃយ៍អនុលេខា សមាជិកគណៈអចិន្ត្រៃយ៍បកកុម្មុយនីសកម្ពុជាទទួលខាងការអប់រំរៀនសូត្រផ្ទីក្នុងបកខទី2ខ្ញុំទទួលភារកិច្ចជាប្រធានគណៈកម្មការសភាតំណាងប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាភារកិច្ចរបស់ខ្ញុំមាន2ប៉ុណ្ណឹងទេឯខាងនីតិបញ្ញត្តិនីតិបដិបត្តិខ្ញុំមិនមានទទួលនាទីអ្វីទេនេះខ្ញុំសូមបញ្ជាក់ប៉ុណ្ណឹងហេតុដូច្នោះសូមឲ្យតុលាការវិនិច្ឆ័យទៅចុះខ្ញុំមិនមានអ្វីក្រៅពីការស្មោះត្រង់ចូលរួមការតស៊ូដើម្បីជាតិប្រជាជនរបស់ខ្ញុំប៉ុណ្ណោះទេសូមបញ្ជាក់សូមគោរពលោកប្រធាន
Chea, you may now proceed. Noun Chea, Mr. President, may I correct 2 words? The 80 million hectares should have been said 8 million instead. Number 2, Vietnam entered Cambodia on the 17th of January 1990 should have been restated as the 7th of January 1979.
សូមជើញបាទ
ព្រោះបេះដូងខ្ញុំមិនសូវស្រួល
Noun Chea, my heart condition is not very good. May I request that the session be deferred to tomorrow? The President, indeed, it has been a 20-minute break already. You may take it easy. We understand that we understand your age and your strength. So if you can proceed slowly we can still proceed. Noun Chea, I think I perhaps need to have a break now. The President, the chamber still proceed with the questioning to you. We will take 30 minutes after from now, and we will consider how we can deal with your request tomorrow, in particular when it comes to your request for a break. I would like to hand over to Judge Silvercat to proceed with further questions to Noun Chea.
Thank you, President. Mr. Noun Chea, I just want to return briefly to finish the discussion about Tu Samut's disappearance. You have told us that you went round to his house and immediately suspected that he had been arrested. Did you, after that, arrange for his family to be evacuated from Phnom Penh into the area where the Workers' Party underground was living at the time, so that they would be safe? Was that the situation?
Noun Chea. At that time, I could not judge that he had been arrested or had a traffic accident. I did not make any decision or had any comment to make to his family. I rushed to return home and reported to Salot Saw that Tu Samut had disappeared. I told Salot Saw that I asked his wife where he could have been or have gone. Then she said he had gone to the market and not yet returned. I had some discussion with Salot Saw how to deal with this situation, because according to the principle, if he were to be arrested, the location where he resided at had to be changed. But at that time, Salot Saw did not make any decision, and he asked me to wait and search, because he had people who worked at the military and hospital who could search for the information concerning Tu Samut. He then asked people at the military and the hospital to locate Tu Samut, but to no avail. A few days later, some friends at the military were asked to look for him. We were told that from the military, Khmer Rouge leader, important Khmer Rouge leader, was arrested and kept at Lonald's house and tortured. And we suspected that it could have been him. It could have been Mr. Tu Samut who had been arrested. And later on, we were reported that he had been tortured because he refused to confess. Consequently, he was taken to be killed at Stung Mien Chey Pagoda, as I already indicated.
Thank you. And was his family then evacuated from Phnom Penh so that they would be safe?
ពេលនោះ
Response. So far as I recollect, at that time the family was not yet evacuated. But there was no problem at that time as yet. Only at a later date that the family was evacuated, but I do not remember the exact date because I had no further contact with the family ever since.
Thank you. Now, you said before that you went to, in answer to my question, that you went to Vietnam along with some other people. Was that for political training and for military training?
Response. So far as I remember, I was sent to attend political sessions by the party, not attending the military sessions.
And were you in Vietnam for 2 years in between 1951 and 1953, along with other people?
បាទ
Response. It was correct, but the date was not correct because I went to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam in 1951, and by only year 1953 that I attended the training session.
So how long did you live in Vietnam for your political training?
តាមខ្ញុំចាំ
Response. It was more than a year, but I did not attend a regular sessions. At that time in Vietnam, there was a movement at the paddy fields, and during the study session, I had to really observe the demonstration at the paddy fields to see what it was going. That's why I did not really attend the session more regularly.
You did receive some military training at some stage, however, because you became a senior member in the Communist Party of Cambodia in charge of certain military responsibilities. When did you receive military training?
ខ្ញុំសូមជម្រាបថាសេចក្តីរាយ
Response. I think that observation is not correct. I never attended a military session. I heard in the statement by the prosecutors that I studied in the military sessions, but I never done that course before, or attended that session before.
After the Geneva Conference and Accords, you've described the country as being in a state of chaos. Was it during that period that the local communist movement became much stronger because there was much dislike of the Vietnamese for not allowing the Cambodians to participate in the Geneva Conference?
Response. After the Geneva Accord, the movement was not very strong. It was weakened. The whole movement was almost ground to a halt, as I already indicated. The Geneva Agreement or Accord on Cambodia issues was to demobilize the militaries and asked that all resistant groups be dismissed or dispersed to be civilians and or to live in their society as normal, to help the government. But they were persecuted because they were accused of being the Khmer Viet Minh. They were arrested, oppressed, executed, in particular during the general election in the Sangkum Ria Niyom. Some were arrested and people had to sell their land to secure the release of their loved ones. Many had to escape. Many went to the jungle in the southwest, the northwest, and other locations. People was on a run, and there were only 2 branches, but the remaining branches were more symbolic. The one in Tramka and the one elsewhere, as I already indicated.
And did the Workers' Party see the need to establish a secret defence unit to protect its cadre and its political activities, as well as to attack the enemy?
Response. So far as I remember, at the beginning, there was no such unit. People were on the run, but because they were mistreated, there was a riot or rebellion movement in some load. I don't recall the date. That rebellion took place in some load. The situation was intense because when people were seen reading newspaper, that would be enough for them to be arrested. They were accused, and Lonol spies were everywhere to hunt them down. So the movement got more intense because of this oppression that led to the uprising in some load, and this was the cause of this situation. I'm rather exhausted, Your Honor. The President, since the accused has indicated that he has been helping the chamber responding to questions for the whole day already, and that he is tired, he would like to take a break. The chamber notes that the request is plausible and that we would like him to have some rest and have enough energy to return to the courtroom for further questions. For that reason, the chamber will adjourn and the next session will be resumed tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Parties and the public are advised to come to this courtroom and public gallery by 9 o'clock. The security personnel are now instructed to take all the accused back to the detention facility and bring them to the courtroom during the indicated time. The court is now adjourned. Mr. President, and Your Honors, I am Noun Chea. I would like to make some statement in response to the key documents presented by the co-prosecutors on the 24th through the 27th of June 2013. Your Honors, during the past few days, commencing from the 24th to the 27th of June, from my holding cell downstairs, I attentively paid attention to the presentation of several documents by both the national and international co-prosecutors. Though I sometimes got what the prosecution submitted, there were times that I could not follow what being discussed due to my poor health conditions. Nonetheless, I understood enough to believe that what were raised by the prosecution appeared to be neither accurate nor corresponding to the actual events that had happened during that period. I would therefore like to crave Your Honor's indulgence, for I wish to enlighten the court on these matters. With that, I would like to contest the entirety of the content and the form of documents presented by the prosecution as follows. First of all, I'd like to address the issue of A. Evacuation of the people. A few years ago, I already testified that after the Liberation Day of the 17th of April 1975, all city dwellers were evacuated, and it is obvious. In any event, the evacuation was not forced. The leadership had to make such decision based on two main reasons. First, it was fear that Americans would drop bombs on cities after Lon Nol's government was defunct. This made the leadership believe that the aerial bombardments would be carried out again onto the cities, especially the city of Phnom Penh. Your Honors, it is well known that the Americans supported Lon Nol's regime and South Vietnam, while North Vietnam was in support of the democratic Cambodia against South Vietnam and the Americans. As a consequence, the Americans believed that North Vietnam and the democratic Cambodia were its enemies. For a period of 300 nights and days, the Americans had dropped several million tons of bombs onto Cambodia. The destruction caused by the bombings was of mind-boggling scale when properties, homes, pagodas, cattle were hit and several thousand of innocent lives were killed. Noting this unfortunate tragedy, which would most likely happen again, and to ensure safety and security for the people, the leadership of the Democratic Cambodia, Pol Pot in particular, decided to evacuate people from the cities. Second of all, Cambodia had gone through war for over 5 years already. This made the country face several challenges, including food shortages. Food shortages were the primary concern to be addressed very urgently. At that time, Cambodia did not receive any aid or assistance from foreign countries. In the light of these dire circumstances, people were required to take part in rice production by themselves to support their livelihood and to build the country. In spite of the above-mentioned reasons, the evacuation of the people at that time was done on a voluntary basis, without any coercive measures, violence, or killing of the people. To maintain this principle, people were educated and well explained about the danger of the Americans' aerial bombardments on cities and the need to resolve food shortages for the livelihood of the people and for building the country ourselves. At that time, people appreciated the danger the country faced and its need. In particular, people supported and loved the revolution. Eventually, people gradually had left the cities after they had received our appeal and explanation to do so. Your Honors, I would wish to bring to your attention some documents that are improper and that cannot be used as the basis for the Chamber's consideration in its ruling to find justice for me and the victims. These documents include, first, the revolutionary flags. The co-prosecutors submitted based on some information regarding the revolutionary flags as the inculpatory evidence against me. Factually, the revolutionary flags had nothing to do with me. The reason I say so because the revolutionary flags were the medical messages, rather the political messages by the senior leaders of the regime. These magazines were not legal documents that had to be applied. Before the victory on the 17th of April 1975, as well as the aftermath of that liberation, that message, the political message in the magazines, were very important to gather the forces of the Democratic Cambodia. Because Cambodia, during that period of time, indeed after the internal war was over, there were wars in which a neighboring country, including Vietnam, invaded Cambodia. Vietnam never wanted Cambodia to be in peace. They used or employed all dirty tricks and tactics to topple Cambodia. For that reason, Pol Pot had to release political messages in the magazines to show the people that the leadership was still strong, firm, and that most of the time the information is not accurate. If we look carefully into the content of the revolutionary flag magazines, we can note that the majority of the articles published in these newspapers or magazines were mainly the statements by Pol Pot and the report collected from each sector or zone across the country. This has already been confirmed in the references the co-prosecutors referred to in the hearings from the 24th to the 27th of June 2013. As a principle, the revolutionary flag magazines were examined by the the Central Committee. Nonetheless, it was Pol Pot alone who made all the decisions before any articles could be published. So, all in all, the decision was made not by collective but by Pol Pot. He himself had his own personal assistant who was fully in charge of writing the articles and publication of these magazines. I still remember that there is another person by the name of Kum Wun alias Chaum who worked in this group. At that time, even though the members of the Central Committee didn't see the right thing being said, no one would dare to challenge such a decision. Pol Pot had all the power, absolute power. Whatever he said, he meant business. In the socialist regime, the people who had all the most power had the decision on the fate of the country, and it was only one person who was behind all these decisions. It was the secretary of the party. Your Honors, I am interested in the accuracy of the documents being put by the co-prosecutor regarding these documents, including the revolutionary flags. And the main point that I wish to draw your attention to is the original documents. The prosecutor put before the chamber. On this point, I already made my submission time and again from the very beginning that documents of original source had to be placed before the chamber or showed to me, but all to no avail. I don't understand much about the rule of evidence, but I fully understand what justice is. So far, the co-prosecutors presented some documents which were mainly inculpatory documents, and they were the copied versions. I believe it is not fair for me to be presented such copied documents, because after all, no one knows whether these documents are genuine or they were the fake ones. On top of that, if the chamber allows such documents to be examined, there were chances that the document could be fabricated or changed easily, and justice will be compromised, and the truth will never be found. So, I would like to absolutely take issue with all the documents presented by the co-prosecutors against me. Secondly, the citation of documents from books. According to or in these proceedings, I have also noted that several articles from books were quoted by the co-prosecutors against me. These books include the books from Mr. Philip Short, Mr. David Chandler, Mr. Poncho Francois, and Mr. Ben Cannon, etc. When it comes to this point, I feel I am stunned and I don't understand why the co-prosecutors resort to using such documents as the core documents against me. Factually, these books, although there are pieces of document inside, they are not 100% true. The quality of truth in that is questionable. In general, in order to make sure the book can convince the readers, the authors had to apply some of their methodology and techniques in making sure that people want to read their books. With that, the truth is compromised. I believe that these hearings before us is not part of a theater, it's not a play. So we need to have all the reasons, genuine reasons, to be examined and to be used for the consideration of the final decision in the case. Above all else, if we look more deeply into this aspect, the information gathered by all the authors in their books, these pieces of information were collected from interviews with individuals the authors believed could provide important information to them. To that effect, who can assure or can guarantee that whatever that individual says in the interview is true? Authors and the reporters are not different. They cannot claim whether the information they obtain through interviews is 100% true. They can only say that they have obtained these pieces of information from A or from B. That's all. Other than that, they would not be able to comment further. And if we would like to know more about this, we have to really meet those individuals personally to obtain further information or to verify the content of the information. Nonetheless, there are still some shortages. So it is really important that witnesses that appear before the chamber had to take the oath before he or she is examined. Otherwise, the information from them would not bear any property value before the chamber and after all cannot be used. Also, authors of the books are foreigners. They don't speak Khmer. So the information they obtained is gathered through the interpreters. Therefore, it lacks integrity and truth. In conclusion, the information obtained from interviews is nothing short of the hearsay pieces of information or evidence. And as it says in Khmer, there is a folk tale about from 1 crow to 10 crows. And this is the same when you hear a piece of information from one person. This information can be exaggerated to 10 times bigger than the original information. And the Khmer folktale is meant to educate people not to believe in hearsay pieces of evidence. And it has been here in Cambodian society for all along. And if the chamber were to rely heavily on the hearsay pieces of evidence, I'm convinced that this court would not be able to find proper justice for every one of us. I therefore would like to reject and would like the chamber to reject all the evidence that is quoted from those books as I cited. Third, minutes of the meetings and the documents that I was forwarded. Regarding this, the co-prosecutors also refer to these documents against me, and the references mainly refer to my presence in meetings or the document sometimes entitled Copy to Uncle Chea or Noun Chea. On this, I wish to also make observation that I do not remember how many times I attended a meeting where Pol Pot attended during the time when I had worked with him. I feel, however, that some information is not true or is still questionable. Nonetheless, even though I attended any of the meetings, that doesn't mean that I engaged in decision making. There were several meetings that other people attended, but it was not necessary that they had to make any decision. And most of the time, attendees did not challenge a decision made in the meeting. With that, the co-prosecutors cannot conclude that because I was present in the meeting, I also engaged in decision making. Likewise, there were other documents entitled in which I was copied. That means I did not attend such meetings or engage in any of the decision making. Although I was copied, sometimes I did not receive such documents. Although I may know about them, I had no authority to do anything about this. I had no authority to stop people from implementing the decision. I therefore would like to contest any attempt to bring these pieces of evidence against me. B. The supervisory role and my role. Once again, I would like to make it clear that during the Democratic Cambodia, I was holding 3 roles in particular. First, Deputy Secretary of the Democratic Cambodia. In this position, I was tasked with the roles of propagating and educate people about the policy among the members of the party. At that time, there were not many member parties. With regard to the content of the education session, I never educated members of the party to be bad people or to be misconduct, to behave improperly, for example. I educated only to people to love the nation and country and others. I never educated any member of the party to kill, mistreat, starve, or to commit an act of genocide. Even once, I never did that. Factually, I already mentioned that in the sessions, I educated people on how to strengthen security and safety against the enemy. I think it is not uncommon because the leadership at all countries in the world would have to bear this responsibility to ensure that the country is well protected and security is well preserved for its own people. For example, recently, America has announced that it is hunting Edward Snowden, and they would like to send this person for prosecution as he is accused of violating the security matters of America. Second, the deputy chairman of the committee to negotiate with the Labour Party of Vietnam. In this role, I did my best to coordinate, negotiate with Vietnam to strengthen our relationship and peace with this neighboring country. But it was not successful because Vietnam really would like to wage war and invade Cambodia. 3. I was the president of the People Representative Assembly of Cambodia. As you know, that during the democratic Cambodia, like in the other communist country, the party leads the country, but the state was in full control of the state. And at that time, the institutions or the management of the state was seen in clear division of power. First, the executive body, legislative body, and the judiciary. Pol Pot was in charge of the executive body, when I myself was in charge of the president of the People's Representative Assembly. And in this role, I was in charge of making sure that the laws was passed. And also, since Cambodia has just recovered from war-torn phenomenon, with Vietnam in particular, we did not have enough time to adopt any new laws. Regarding another role, I did never perform that role. I would like to take issue with the assertion that I used to be the acting prime minister rather, or the person in charge of military committee, or I was involved with the supervision of S-21 because I was implicated. Please be informed that Pol Pot was the deputy prime minister. Rather, Pol Pot had his deputy prime minister, who was Mr. Ieng Sari, Son Sen, and Von Wait. So, there was no reason that Pol Pot would like to appoint me as the acting prime minister apart from the deputy prime minister that I just mentioned. And it is true that he would not do that when he was absent. I would like to also solemnly declare that I engaged in the democratic Cambodia for the purpose of liberating Cambodia and protect Cambodia from being invaded by the neighboring country. We know that this neighboring country would like to swallow Cambodia all along. I love my own people and I have no reason to mistreat or commit any crime of genocide against my own people. Finally, I would like the court to kindly consider my request regarding my rejection of all the documents presented by the co-prosecutors, and it is really important for the purpose of the truth and justice for me. Thank you very much, Mr. President and Your Honors.
សូមអរគុណលោកប្រធាន សូមគោរពលោកប្រធានលោកស្រីចក្រមភាគីនិងសាធារណជនទាំងអស់ហើយនិងអង្គសាវនាការទាំងមូលដោយដែលលោកស្រីចក្រមបានស្ដាប់សេចក្តីសន្និដ្ឋានរបស់សហព្រះអាជ្ញារួចមកហើយ ដោយយោងតាមនៃការបំបែកកិច្ចដំណើរការនីតិវិធីរបស់អង្គជំនុំជម្រះសាលាដំបងដែលបានសម្រេចលើកយកតែអង្គហេតុដែលបានចោទប្រកាន់ដោយមានចែងនៅក្នុងនៃការបញ្ជូនរឿងទៅជំនុំជម្រះគឺអង្គហេតុពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងការជន្លៀសប្រជាជនដោយបង្ខំដំណាក់កាលទី1និងដំណាក់កាលទី2និងទីកន្លែងសម្រាប់មនុស្សនៅទួលពោជ្រៃហើយដែលអង្គហេតុទាំងនេះពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងបទឧក្រិដ្ឋកម្មប្រឆាំងមនុស្សជាតិគឺជាការធ្វើឲ្យមនុស្សឃាតការសម្លាប់រង្គាលការធ្វើទុកបុកម្នេញការជន្លៀសនិងការបាត់ខ្លួនដោយបង្ខំសហប្រាជ្ញាយល់ឃើញថាជនជាប់ចោទនួនជានិងខៀវសំផនត្រូវទទួលខុសត្រូវចំពោះឧក្រិដ្ឋកម្មទាំងនេះដែលបានប្រព្រឹត្តឡើងស្ថិតក្នុងវិសាលភាពនៃការជំនុំជម្រះរឿងក្តី002/01នេះក្នុងនាមជាមេដឹកនាំជាន់ខ្ពស់នៃរបបកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យជនជាប់ចោទនួនជានិងខៀវសំផនជាអ្នកដាក់ចេញនៅគោលនយោបាយរបស់បកកុម្មុយនីសកម្ពុជាហើយគោលនយោបាយទាំង5នេះរួមមានការផ្លាស់ទីលំនៅដែលធ្វើឡើងជាច្រើនលើកច្រើនសារទៅលើប្រជាជនចេញពីទីប្រជុំជនទៅកាន់ទីជនបទនិងទី2ពីជនបទមួយទៅកាន់ទីជនបទមួយផ្សេងទៀតទី2ការបង្កើតនិងការទាញយកផលប្រយោជន៍តាមរយៈសហករណ៍និងតាមការដ្ឋានការអប់រំសមាជិកភាពមិនល្អចំណុចទី3និងការកំទេចខ្មាំងដែលត្រូវបានរកឃើញទាំងនៅក្នុងនិងក្រៅជួរបកទី4ការចេញនៅវិធានការជាពិសេសចំពោះក្រុមមនុស្សជាក់លាក់នានាដូចជាជនជាតិចាមជនជាតិវៀតណាមពុទ្ធសាសនិកជននិងអតីតអ្នករដ្ឋការនានានៃសាធារណរដ្ឋខ្មែររួមទាំងមន្ត្រីរាជការអតីតបុគ្គលិកយោធាព្រមទាំងក្រុមគ្រួសាររបស់ពួកគេចំណុចទី5ការដាក់បទបញ្ជាតាក់ទងនឹងការរៀបអាពាហ៍ពិពាហ៍ក្នុងចំណោមគោលនយោបាយទាំង5នេះដោយបានរៀបរាប់នឹងមានគោលនយោបាយចំនួន2ត្រូវបានអនុវត្តបានសម្រេចដែលពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងអង្គហេតុដែលបានចោទប្រកាន់ស្ថិតក្នុងវិសាលភាពនៃការជំនុំជម្រះនេះគឺការជន្លៀសប្រជាជនដោយបង្ខំនិងការសម្លាប់មន្ត្រីរដ្ឋការស៊ីវិលនិងយោធានៃរបបសាធារណរដ្ឋខ្មែរសហប្រាជ្ញាយល់ឃើញថាតាមរយៈឯកសារភស្តុតាងដូចជា Telegram វីដេអូសក្ខីកម្មសាក្សីនិងអ្នកជំនាញបានបង្ហាញច្បាស់ថាជនជាប់ចោទទាំងពីរនាក់ពិតជាបានដឹងនិងបានចូលរួមយ៉ាងសកម្មក្នុងការអនុវត្តផែនការរបស់បកកុម្មុយនីសកម្ពុជាដែលផែនការនេះបានបណ្ដាលឲ្យប្រជាជនរាប់លានអ្នកស្លាប់ក្នុងរបប3ឆ្នាំ8ខែនិង20ថ្ងៃយើងខ្ញុំមិនជ្រើសរើសយកវិធីសម្លាប់ដើម្បីយកមកធ្វើការដាក់ទណ្ឌកម្មចំពោះជនជាប់ចោទទាំងពីរនាក់នេះឡើយយើងខ្ញុំមិនស្នើសុំឲ្យលោកស្រីចក្រមថ្កោលទោសជនជាប់ចោទនិងក្រុមគ្រួសារទាំងមូលរបស់ពួកគេដោយសារការបណ្ដេញចេញពួកគេឲ្យចាក់ចេញពីលំនៅឋានដោយបង្ខំឲ្យធ្វើដំណើរដោយថ្មើរជើងនៅក្រោមកម្ដៅព្រះអាទិត្យដ៏ក្តៅហែងរាល់ថ្ងៃដោយຕົកចោលនៅក្នុងទីព្រៃនិងវាលរហោឋានដោយបង្ខំឲ្យធ្វើការយ៉ាងលំបាកនិងបង្អត់អាហារដោយក្នុងប្រព័ន្ធទេសភាពដែលមានអង្គការចាត់តាំងមួយឬឲ្យទទួលរងនៅការរំលោភបំពាននិងវាយដំដោយឲ្យទទួលរងនៅការភូតកុហកនិងបោកប្រាស់ដោយឲ្យគេចាប់ចងនិងបាញ់សម្លាប់ចោលដោយឲ្យឈរមើលកូនរបស់ខ្លួនត្រូវគេចាប់ហែជា2និងបោកទប់ទៅនឹងគល់ឈើនិងដោយទុកឲ្យមនុស្សជាទីស្រឡាញ់របស់ពួកគេស្លាប់ដោយបាត់សេចក្តីថ្លៃថ្នូរហើយសូម្បីតែរៀបចំពិធីបុណ្យសពតាមប្រពៃណី ក៏គេមិនអនុញ្ញាតឲ្យដែរដោយដែលជនជាប់ចោទទាំងពីររូបនិងសហការីរបស់ពួកគេបានប្រព្រឹត្តមកលើជនរងគ្រោះនៅថ្ងៃនេះក្នុងនាមប្រជាជនកម្ពុជានិងសហគមន៍អន្តរជាតិយើងខ្ញុំចង់ឃើញការផ្ដល់ជូនយុត្តិធម៌ពីលោកស្រីចក្រមដល់ជនរងគ្រោះទាំងអស់ដែលបានស្លាប់បាត់បង់ជីវិតនិងអ្នកដែលនៅរស់រានមានជីវិតដល់សប្តាហ៍ថ្ងៃដែលបានឆ្លងកាត់របបដ៏សែនឃោឃៅក្រោមការដឹកនាំរបស់ជនជាប់ចោទទាំងពីរនាក់នេះនិងក្រោមការដឹកនាំរបស់មេដឹកនាំផ្សេងទៀតយើងខ្ញុំស្នើឲ្យតុលាការធ្វើការផ្ដន្ទាទោសជនជាប់ចោទទាំងពីរនេះទៅតាមច្បាប់លោកស្រីចក្រមជនជាប់ចោទនួនជានិងខៀវសំផនមិនបានសម្ដែងការសោកស្ដាយឬវិបដិសារីឡើយចំពោះឧក្រិដ្ឋកម្មដែលបានកើតឡើងក្រោមការដឹកនាំរបស់របបកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យជនជាប់ចោទនួនជានិងខៀវសំផនមិនបានសហការជាមួយតុលាការដើម្បីបង្ហាញការពិតដើម្បីផ្ដល់ភាពយុត្តិធម៌ជូនជនរងគ្រោះឡើយប៉ុន្តែផ្ទុយទៅវិញចំពោះជនជាប់ចោទនួនជាបានសម្ដែងនៅការខឹងសម្បាតាមរយៈការប្រើពាក្យសម្ដីកុំយកឈើពុកមកឆ្លាក់ធ្វើជាព្រះនៅក្នុងពេលអង្គជំនុំជម្រះស្ដាប់សក្ខីកម្មរបស់កាំងកិច្ចអៀវហៅដូចចំណែកឯលោកជនជាប់ចោទខៀវសំផនវិញបាននិយាយថាអ្វីដែលបានកន្លងផុតហើយទុកឲ្យកន្លងផុតទៅចុះជនជាប់ចោទនួនជានិងខៀវសំផនផ្ដាល់ចម្លើយភូតផមិនទទួលស្គាល់ឯកសារភ័ស្តុតាងដែលអង្គជំនុំជម្រះសាលាដំបងដាក់ពិភាក្សាដេញដោលដោយអះអាងថាការជន្លៀសគឺដើម្បីដោះស្រាយវិបត្តិស្បៀងនិងដើម្បីបញ្ជាពីការទម្លាក់គ្រាប់បែករបស់សហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកជនជាប់ចោទខៀវសំផនអះអាងថាខ្លួនមិនដែលមានទំនាក់ទំនងជាមួយមេដឹកនាំជាន់ខ្ពស់ផ្សេងទៀតដូចជាប៉ុលពតនិងនួនជាដើមនេះជាអ្វីដែលផ្ទុយស្រឡះពីសក្ខីកម្មរបស់សាក្សីជាច្រើននិងផ្ទុយពីអ្វីដែលគាត់បានផ្ដល់បទសម្ភាសន៍ជាមួយអ្នកសារព័ត៌មានពីមុនមកនៅក្នុងវិសាលភាពនៃការជំនុំជម្រះក្នុងដំណាក់កាលទី1នេះយើងខ្ញុំមិនឃើញមានមូលដ្ឋានណាមួយដើម្បីបន្ធូរបន្ថយទោសដល់ជនជាប់ចោទទាំងពីរនាក់នេះឡើយលោកស្រីចក្រមនៅថ្ងៃនេះអ្វីដែលជនរងគ្រោះបានទទួលរងទុក្ខវេទនាឥតកណនាដោយសាររបបកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យហើយដែលយើងទាំងអស់គ្នាព្រមទាំងសហគមន៍អន្តរជាតិទន្ទឹងរង់ចាំអស់រយៈពេល38ឆ្នាំ6ខែនិង4ថ្ងៃដោយគិតចាប់ពីថ្ងៃទី17ខែមេសាឆ្នាំ1975មកដែលនៅពេលនោះប្រទេសកម្ពុជាបានធ្លាក់ចូលក្នុងភាពខ្មៅងងឹតនិងភ័យខ្លាចអស់រយៈពេល3ឆ្នាំ8ខែនិង20ថ្ងៃហើយផលប៉ះពាល់ដែលសល់ពីរបបនេះនៅតែមាននៅឡើយរហូតមកដល់បច្ចុប្បន្ននេះដូច្នេះពន្លឺយុត្តិធម៌នឹងខិតជិតមកដល់ហើយដែលរកឃើញថាជនជាប់ចោទនួនជានិងខៀវសំផនជាអ្នកទទួលខុសត្រូវហើយដែលជនជាប់ចោទទាំងពីររូបនេះនឹកស្មានមិនដល់ដូច្នេះឃើញថាមានភ័ស្តុតាងគ្រប់គ្រាន់នៅចំពោះមុខលោកស្រីចក្រមនឹងយោងតាមខ្លឹមសារនៃមាត្រា5មាត្រា29ថ្មីនិងមាត្រា39ថ្មីច្បាប់ស្តីពីការបង្កើតអង្គជំនុំជម្រះវិសាមញ្ញក្នុងតុលាការកម្ពុជាដើម្បីកាត់សេចក្តីឧក្រិដ្ឋកម្មដែលបានប្រព្រឹត្តឡើងនៅក្នុងរយៈពេលនៃកម្ពុជាប្រជាធិបតេយ្យសហព្រះញ្ញាស្នើសុំឲ្យអង្គជំនុំជម្រះសាលាដំបងសម្រាប់ផ្ដន្ទាទោសជនជាប់ចោទនួនជានិងខៀវសំផនដោយដាក់ពន្ធនាគារអស់មួយជីវិត ដែលជាទោសមួយគត់សមស្របតាមច្បាប់អង្គជំនុំជម្រះវិសាមញ្ញក្នុងតុលាការកម្ពុជានិងបទដ្ឋានអន្តរជាតិសូមអរគុណ
Good afternoon, Your Honors. I would like to make a brief notification to Your Honors. As I have always reiterated that this court has failed to respect a fair trial, a principle of fair trial, fair and just trial, and through my observation, I observed that the treatment towards the accused and my defense team is getting worse. I therefore have no confidence in this court, and this is a similar position reflected by Khiev Samphorn. The treatment by the court toward me is unbalanced, as it seems to favor the prosecution. For example, recently my defense counsel was prohibited from asking substantive questions in order to defend my case. That is an example of injustice, that my counsel is prohibited from performing his defense duty to his full capacity. This is a case of life and death for me. It is not just for granted or an expeditious process to punish me. With such lack of confidence and imbalanced treatment by the chamber, I would like therefore to notify that in order to respond to the questions put by the prosecution and the party, I decline to do so due to this nature of injustice by this very court. I'm grateful.